And good afternoon. All my clocks are at different times. I think I'm a minute late. Today, I want to talk to you about using music as medicine. So, when I used to be a teacher, all right, I guess I still am a teacher because I still do these lunch and learns. When I used to be a teacher, I would play classical music whenever it was test day because I had read and I had done some research that classical music would help your brain work better, and the children loved it, and it was all good, and it was not a big deal, and so we did that. But what I have been learning is that there is a long history of using music as medicine, and so I just want to throw that out there because a lot of people are looking to a lot of different alternatives for their health, and that's what we're all about. We're all about healthcare and helping you to be your best self. And so we're going to talk about music, and it's classical music, but it doesn't have to be dirgy. Okay, so a lot of times when people think about classical music, they think about dirgy music, they think about music that they play at funerals, and it's just not like that. So music moves the soul. Now, we are three parts. We are body. This is our body. We are our brain. That's our personality, our likes, our emotions, all that kind of thing. They call it our soul. And then we are spirit. The researchers are saying that 85% of sickness and disease has to do with our emotions. So that would be our soul. Okay. So in the Bible, and I know people always say, well, you lost me when you start quoting the Bible, but it's my program, so I can do what I want to do. The Bible says in 3rd John that we would be in health even as our soul prospered. And so we see that music helps us with our soul. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. And in fact, when I was doing the research on this, I kept playing in my head The Day the Music Died, by, can't remember the name of the guy, but you know what I'm talking about. So Clemency Burton Hill, the author of The Year of Wonder, Classical Music, says, I believe that the greatest works of music are engines of empathy. They move our emotions. They allow us to travel without moving into other lives, souls, or ages. She says that classical music has been gifted to her in many different ways. So there's a composer. Now, this is a composer. We've all seen the Shenyun, the Chinese acrobatic dancing group. This is the composer. He says that music is of great importance in China for health benefits. He says our ancestor believed that music has the power to harmonize a person's soul in ways that medicine cannot. In ancient China, one of music's earliest purposes was for healing. The Chinese word or character for medicine actually comes from the character of music. Now, we know that Chinese medicine has been around 4,000, 6,000 years. It's been around a long time. A lot of people in Western civilizations kind of poo-poo it, but don't, because they use herbs and natural products, and they have a long history of being very sound. And so we want to take advantage of that. We need to know that in that earliest time, they used music as medicine. Medicine in the Chinese character is characterized by bitterness. Yet a patient is able to regain health and happiness only after suffering its bitterness. Now, don't we just know the song, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, right? So supercalifragilistic, you're going to remember all that. He notes, this is this composer guy, he notes that the great yellow emperor, known as the forefather of the Chinese people, developed a deep understanding of the power of music after being inspired by a divine fairy in a dream, no less, okay, to use drums to defeat the enemies of battle. Gale says it was during the Yellow Emperor's rule that the people discovered the relationship between the pentatonic scale and the 5 elements, the human body's 5 internal organs, and the 5 physical senses. So there's a lot of correlation there. So we do a lot of energy medicine here in the clinic, and we know that everything has a vibration. So if it's a bacteria, if it's a virus, if it's a parasite, if it's a natural herb or supplement, everything has a vibration. When you come into the clinic, we look at you, we do our little tool, and we see where you are as far as your vibrational frequencies. So we know that aberrant vibrations are a lack of nutrition. We know that it also could be an addition of a vibration that you don't need, like a vibration of a parasite, a heavy metal, a bacteria, or whatever it is. So this philosophy is very, very resonant with me, because I know that the body is like a symphony. When the symphony, everybody's in tune. I used to play a clarinet in my high school band, and there's nothing worse than somebody, me, or somebody else with a reed instrument, an oboe, a saxophone, a clarinet, whatever, that they haven't moistened the reed properly. And so the reed squeaks and it makes everything sound out of tune. Well, that's what happens with our body when we're not resonating properly. So if music harmonizes the emotions, then that's going to bring health and healing to our body. And they've done some research on this. So we're not just talking about history, right? I'm giving you a little bit of a background, but we're going to talk about some case studies in a minute. The Greeks believed that music had the resonance within the body and soul in order to be beneficial. And viewed music as one of the ways of connecting the soul of man with the universe. Now, you may or may not know this, but there is a vibrational frequency in the atmosphere called the Schumann wave. Now, the Schumann wave, they call it the vibrational frequency of the earth. They call it the vibrational frequency of life. When you are resonating in agreement or in alignment with the Schumann wave, you're going to be very, very healthy. When you're not resonating in that frequency, then you're not going to be healthy. And so this is what we want. We want to resonate in the proper way, and music can actually work with us, but it has to be the right kind of music. So we're going to talk about those studies. Okay. Modern medicine is rediscovering the many health benefits of music, particularly those of classical music. So at Johns Hopkins Center for Music and Medicine, they formed a choral group, a choir, called Parkinsonics. Okay, these are participants with Parkinson's disease, and they demonstrate improvement both in movement and in vocal expression, which is often impaired with Parkinson's. And this is a quote: "It is fascinating and powerful to think that music, something that has been floating around in our environment forever, that is natural, omnipresent human activity, has demonstrable benefit as a treatment," says Sarah Hoover, the co-director of the center, on the center's website. Well, Cornell Medicine, a graduate college of Cornell University, has developed a musical and medicine program and even formed its own orchestra. They've collaborated with Juilliard to provide many concerts for patients and families and hospital staff in the surrounding New York City community. They offer long-term courses to help with that. So that's really, really important. Okay. Claudius Conrad, medical doctor, PhD of the MD Anderson Center right here in Houston, is a pianist and a surgeon who believes in the healing power of music. He notes on the center's website that in the Middle Ages, popular prescriptions involved specific musical combinations. The example he offers involved alternating between playing the flute and the harp to alleviate gout. Now, we know, if we are Christian, we know that King David was a harpist, and we know that it helped King Saul when King Saul was just irritated. Now, we know in our folklore, we have these sayings: music calms the savage beast. We have that in our history. We have that in our collective consciousness. And so you don't want to just poo-poo it because it's the ancient Chinese or the ancient Greeks or the ancient Jewish sacred scripture. You don't want to just throw that out when we've got the Cornell University, Johns Hopkins University, and MD Anderson University implementing music as a medicinal component. So we want to make sure that this is something that we pay attention to. It says during his fellowship in ICU medicine, Conrad conducted a study on his patients and found that novel stress pathway that mediates music relaxation. He discovered that some intensive care patients could be spared sedative medication when listening to classical music. So that's just awesome. The medicinal effects of classical music have been studied by researchers for more insight into their healing potential. There are several studies showing that classical music can decrease both blood pressure and heart rate. Now, we know that hypertension is on the rise here in the United States and probably in all other Western developments. And so why is that? Because we have just chronic stress. So one of the studies said that just listening to classical music for 50 minutes a day would move the needle on mercury, millimeters per whatever it is, that it lowered your blood pressure by 5 points. That's a lot on blood pressure. And so that's really, really important. One study in the British Journal of Health Psychology compared the effects of classical, pop, and jazz music. So you might not like classical, you might like jazz. I like jazz. You might like pop music, which of course I like pop music too. And they did a study on this. And they showed that participants who listened to classical music had significantly lower post-task systolic blood pressure levels than did the participants who heard no music. The other musical styles did not change their blood pressure at all. So we're not saying that pop and jazz are bad for you, but they're not going to have the medicinal effects that classical music is going to have. In a 2015 study, Professor Peter Slight of Oxford University found that listening to slower pieces by Verdi or Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, as well as Puccini, significantly lowered blood pressure, which confirmed other findings. In another study, Hans Joachim Trapp and Gabriel Voigt, demonstrated that music by Mozart and Strauss markedly lowered their patients' heart rate, but their blood pressure was also lowered, sometimes even better than the medication that they were on. So by comparison, music by ABBA did not demonstrate any improvement. Mozart's Symphony Number 40 in G minor demonstrated the strongest benefit. So go to your computer, download that track because it's out there, it's public. Go download that. And if you have hypertension, if you have erratic pulse rate, then you're going to want to listen to that at least 50 minutes a day. And you may not even have to do blood pressure medicine. Now, I'm not telling you to stop your blood pressure medicine. I'm saying do that, see what happens. If it lowers your blood pressure, then you're on to a good deal. A study by Ateo Kamizawa and Kabasaki, scientific research publishing revealed that classical music improved heart rate variability, indicating lowered automatic nervous system activity, thus lowered stress. Classical music also increased blood flow as well as body surface temperature, both signs of a state of exhaustion. So we do here in the clinic, we do heart rate variability. So what is that? Well, it's kind of like an EKG that you would do at your hospital. We put some little Tracy calls them jumper cables, but it's not really jumper cables, but we put some things on your wrist and it measures your heartbeat. And what it does is it measures the interval between the R, you've got P beats, R rates, M beats, you've got all kinds of things in there. This is not a class on that. It does not matter. Heart rate variability tests how variable your heartbeat is. Well, duh, that's what it's called. Why is that important? Because if your heart beats in a static rhythm, like every 0.3 seconds you have a heartbeat, every 0.5 seconds you have a heartbeat. I'm just pulling these numbers out of my head, okay? The point is it's static, then you are not going to respond appropriately to stress. And so you're going to be much more likely to have a heart attack. If you have a time variation between the R rates, then your heart is much more flexible. Now, on the EKG, if your heart rate is very static, your line is going to be, you're going to get the bumps, your heart beating, you're going to get that. But the graph is going to be pretty straight. If you have a variable heart rate, your graph is going to be very wavy. You'd have to see it. I'm trying to explain it. Anyway, we do offer this in the clinic. What we want to do is we want to increase your variability, because if we increase your variability, then whenever stress comes, and hello, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we've got bad news on every side, we've got bad news on social media, we've got bad news on our news. So we're always in a state of stress, chronic stress. That puts us in a sympathetic dominance pattern, which causes things to be static. We want to be in a parasympathetic dominance pattern, which causes things to be dynamic. So you're just going to have to trust me on that. But looking at classical music puts you out of a sympathetic dominance into parasympathetic dominance, which means you're going to respond better to life's challenges. Now, here in the clinic, we do have red light therapy with binaural music in it. It retrains your brain. And I will just tell you, as someone who stays in sympathetic dominance, I have to really work at getting into parasympathetic. I can use this therapy and I can get right into sympathetic dominance, parasympathetic dominance, and I can feel the shift. And so you want to be able to do that. You don't have to come in, pay me to do this treatment. You can do it yourself, but you've got to listen to classical music to do that. The one that he said was the best. They just said classical music. All right. So what else can classical music do for you? Well, studies show that classical music can help not only relieve stress and anxiety, but listening to only 15 minutes per day is more effective than psychotherapy in treatment. Well, hello, who likes to go to a psychiatrist? Nobody wants to do that. So if you listen to classical music, it does more for you mentally with your chemicals, your neurotransmitters, than going to psychotherapy treatments. All right. Low to medium grade depression was helped, according to a small study published in the Arts of Psychotherapy. Classical music has been shown to improve alertness, concentration, leading to greater productivity. This is why, as a teacher, I would play classical music on test days, because I wanted them to have recall. I wanted their cognitive ability to be what it needs to be. Memory is also enhanced, again, listening to classical music. Some studies showing benefits, even improving dementia. So there's also improvement in ADD, ADHD. So if your children are suffering with this, instead of letting them just listen to whatever they want to listen to, put some classical music on and you're going to see a difference. Handel's water music, or Bach's Brandenburg concertos, have demonstrated the best results. And again, those are old classical pieces. It's public. It's in the public domain. You can go to Google. You can download it. You can play it on your iPad, whatever. It's a piece of cake, and it's going to be way more effective than some other treatments that you might want to do. The most benefit from music on health, and therefore on the intensive care patients, has been classical music and meditative music, whereas heavy metal or techno music are ineffective and even dangerous. This kind of music is effective and can be utilized in an effective intervention in patients with cardiovascular disturbances, pain, intensive care, or other needs. Not all music is therapeutic. The negative effects of certain types of music have been demonstrated in various studies. One of the most fascinating studies was done by Virginia high school students in 1997. His award-winning science experiment was covered by the Virginian Pilot, the state's largest newspaper. So the article says that he used the effects of music on mice as they moved through a maze. After establishing a baseline of 10 minutes to navigate the maze, he found the control group of mice, which were not exposed to music, they were able to cut 5 minutes off their time. That feat was beaten by mice who listened to classical music and managed to cut their time by 8.5 minutes. So you're going to have muscle memory. So if you do it once and then you do it again, you're going to cut your time. But if you're listening to classical music, you're going to cut your time even more because you're just more productive and you remember things better. Meanwhile, mice that were exposed to hard rock music took 20 minutes longer to complete the maze. All right. He says, and this is a quote. So all of you guys out there and girls that listen to nasty music, I'm saying it's nasty because I don't like it. So y'all just bear with me. He says, I had to cut the project short because of all the hard rock mice killed each other. None of the classical mice attacked each other. All right. He's not the only researcher to notice that negative music affects us negatively. We've talked about the biology of water. We've talked about how water, when you play nice music, you get pretty crystals. When you play nasty music, hard rock music, techno music, it gets really nasty crystals, very chaotic. All right. Do your research. You can find it. It's easy to find. Now, this is what we play in my home. This is what we play here in the clinic from time to time. It's called whole tones. Now, this is the subtitle is the healing frequency of music. So these are different frequencies. And on the back, you can see it's kind of color coded here. Get the angle just right. There's a lot of light there. Anyway, it's color coded. Well, these codes coincide with the chakra map. All right. I don't want to lose anybody here. The chakra map coincides with your endocrine system, everything that makes a hormone. You're not going to be healthy if your hormones aren't right. So they've got a frequency for your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, your pineal gland. They have a frequency for your thyroid. They've got a frequency for your heart. They've got a frequency for your adrenals. They've got a frequency for your pancreas, and they've got a frequency for your sex glands, right? So when you go through these different steps, each one of them is 22 minutes and 22 seconds. I don't know if there's anything magical. Excuse me. Got a lump in my throat there. I don't know if there's anything magical about those times, but they're on a CD. I put them on repeat. Now, I will just tell you that people that come into the clinic that have a lot of emotional issues, they have a hard time listening to this, because what this will do is it will detoxify their emotions. If your emotions are toxic, your body's going to be toxic. If you can straighten out your emotions, then you're going to get well. So this is really, really important, because why? We are body, soul, and spirit. We want to be healthy. If our emotions are jacked up, we're going to be jacked up. So what I want to inspire you today, excuse me. Oh, I don't have anything going in here. Just, I don't know. Excuse me. What you want to do is you want to listen to classical music at least 50 minutes a day. See what happens to your health. See what happens to your blood pressure. See what happens to your blood sugar, because your blood sugar is an endocrine function, because your pancreas is an endocrine gland. See what happens. You might be very, very surprised. See what happens if you have anxiety, if you're operating in fear, all those kind of things. See what happens. And you might be very surprised that you're able to mitigate some of your issues if you just listen to the right kind of music. Remember, the day the music died, all those consequences there. We don't want that to happen, but we have to listen to the right kind of music. So hopefully you're inspired to add that into your health regimen. Maybe when you're going to sleep, maybe when you're waking up, maybe when you're just having some relaxation time. My throat is doing some funny things, so I'm going to say goodbye. It is the weekend. We want you to take care of yourself, do some self-care. I know that I'm looking forward to a weekend. It's been busy the last 2 weekends, so I'm looking forward to more of a relaxed time this weekend, and I will see you next week. Take care.